I still remember that morning. The air was still, quiet, almost too peaceful for what was about to happen. I was sitting by the kitchen table, holding an empty glass, waiting for my daughter, Emily, to pour me just a little more water. My throat was dry, and my legs were aching from the night before. I didn't want to bother her, but she was right there, scrolling through her phone, sipping her fancy coffee. "Sweetheart," I said softly, my voice cracking, "could you please pour me a bit more water?" She didn't look up. "Mom, I already gave you some," she muttered, annoyed. "I know," I said with a small smile, "but it wasn't much, and the pills, they make my mouth dry." Before I could finish, she sighed loudly, slammed her phone down, grabbed the jug and poured a splash, barely enough to cover the bottom of the glass. I blinked surprised, but I smiled anyway. "A little more, darling," I whispered. And that's when she did it. Without a word, she lifted the jug and threw the cold water straight at my face. The shock hit me harder than the water ever could. It wasn't just the sting against my skin, it was the disbelief. The way she looked at me afterward. There was no regret, no softness, just irritation. Like I was nothing more than a burden she couldn't shake off. I wiped my face slowly, trembling, feeling my heart pound in my chest. My hands shook, not from age this time, but from heartbreak. She rolled her eyes and said, "You always want something, Mom. I'm not your servant. Maybe you should learn to do things yourself." I looked at her, my only daughter, and for a moment I didn't even recognize her. I raised her with love, sacrifice, and sleepless nights. I gave up everything. My job, my friends, my youth, just to make her life easier. And now, I was standing there, dripping wet, humiliated in my own home. "Emily," I whispered, my voice breaking, "why are you talking to me like this?" She didn't answer. She just walked away, slamming the door behind her. The sound echoed through the house like thunder, and suddenly the silence that followed felt heavier than ever before. I sat there for a long time, water dripping down my chin, staring at the empty chair where my husband once used to sit. He passed years ago, and I had no one left, just her, my precious daughter, or the person I thought she still was. You know, people say when your children grow up they'll take care of you. But what happens when they forget who you are? When they look at you like you're in the way? Tell me, my dear, what would you do if your own child made you feel like a stranger in your own home? Comment below. I really want to know your answer. That night I didn't sleep. I sat by the small window of my room, listening to the clock tick and the cars passing by outside. My face still stung a little from the water, but the real pain was inside. Every beat of my heart whispered one word: why? Why had she changed? Why did she forget all those years I carried her through storms? And I saw something that made my heart sink even deeper. Through the thin walls I could hear her laughing, not with me, but on the phone with her husband, bragging. "She's so dramatic," she said. I threw water at her and she looked like she was going to cry. Maybe that'll finally teach her not to be so needy. And then they both laughed. Me. At that moment, something inside me went quiet. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was this calm, heavy silence, the kind that comes before a storm. I sat there, my heart breaking piece by piece, and I thought about every sacrifice I had ever made for her. The years of saving money, skipping meals, and working late nights, all to give her the life she wanted. And I remembered something. Her bank account. She'd trusted me with access to it when she moved me in. "Just in case," she said. She never imagined I'd ever use it, not after all the love I'd shown her. But that night, as I watched her laugh at my pain, something inside me shifted. I whispered to myself, maybe it's time she learns what loss feels like. I didn't make a decision out of anger. I made it out of heartbreak. My dear ones, before I go on, if you've ever been hurt by someone you love, stay with me till the end of this story. Broken heart. Because sometimes silence isn't weakness. It's the start of strength. That night, I opened my old wooden box, the one with all my memories, letters, and her childhood drawings. I took out the photo of her 5th birthday, the one where she was covered in cake, smiling at me like I was her whole world. I held that photo tight and cried, quietly so she wouldn't hear. And when the first light of morning touched my window, I wiped my tears, stood up, and knew exactly what I needed to do. Because when love turns into disrespect, a mother's heart can only break so much before it turns into resolve. That morning after she left for work, I just sat there for a while. Still, quiet, breathing in the scent of coffee she'd spilled on the counter. My reflection in the window looked tired, defeated. But something else shimmered behind those old eyes. A kind of calm determination I hadn't felt in years. The sound of her laughter from the night before still echoed in my ears. Every time it replayed, I felt my chest tighten. I whispered to myself, "You gave her everything and she forgot who you were." I moved slowly to my small wooden drawer and pulled out the old brown envelope where I'd kept the documents, the account papers, my passport, and a few faded photos of her childhood. I stared at those papers for a long time. That account, the one she had told me to manage, the one that held the savings she and her husband worked for, it wasn't just money anymore. It had become a symbol of everything she thought I didn't deserve. I opened her account on my small tablet, my hands trembling slightly as I typed in the password she once made me memorize, for emergencies. "Well," I whispered softly, "this is an emergency of the heart." The screen blinked, and the numbers appeared. My breath caught for a moment. I didn't plan to take it all. No, I wasn't cruel. I only wanted enough to make a point. To remind her that even a quiet, aging mother can still make a move that changes everything. I transferred a large portion to my own account. My heart pounded as each number appeared on the confirmation screen. Then I paused, staring at the message that popped up. "Transfer successful." A tear rolled down my cheek. Not because of guilt, but because it hurt that I even had to do it. I whispered, "You'll understand someday, my daughter. Not today, but someday." That afternoon I packed my small suitcase. Just the essentials. My medicine, a few clothes, my late husband's watch, and that one photo of Emily smiling when she was 5. I folded it neatly between my scarves, as if I was still trying to keep her safe somehow. I moved slowly through the house, touching every wall, every frame. The walls were still filled with her laughter, the laughter of a little girl who used to dance barefoot in the kitchen. Now that sound felt like a ghost. By the time the sun began to sink, I was standing at the front door with my bag in hand. My heart was heavy, but there was a strange peace in the air too. I had already booked a small ticket the night before. Not to anywhere fancy, just far away enough that she wouldn't find me easily. A small town by the sea, where no one would know my name. I looked back one last time. The house seemed colder than ever. "Goodbye, Emily," I whispered. "I hope one day when you look for me, you'll find more than silence." And then, left. At the airport, the air felt different, full of people chasing destinations, while I was running away from one. I found a small corner by the window, watching the planes take off, one after another. I hadn't flown in years. My heart raced with fear and excitement, both tangled together. An elderly couple sat beside me, laughing softly, sharing sandwiches. I smiled faintly, remembering when Emily's father and I used to travel together, with little Emily sleeping on my lap. I missed those days when love was simple, when family meant warmth. "Are you traveling alone, dear?" the woman beside me asked kindly. He nodded. "Yes, alone this time." She smiled gently. "Sometimes leaving is the only way to be heard." Her words pierced right through me. I turned to the window and whispered, "Yes, sometimes silence has to be loud enough to echo." When the plane took off, I closed my eyes. As the ground disappeared below, I let go of everything, the pain, the anger, the endless waiting for kindness. My tears fell quietly, not from regret, but from relief. Felt free. For the first time in years, I was doing something for me. Not as a mother, not as a caretaker, just as a woman who deserved peace. Back home, Emily would come back that evening, and I could almost imagine her voice calling out, "Mom, where are you?" But all she'd find was silence, and a note I left on the table, written in my careful handwriting. I asked for a little water, and you poured me humiliation instead. So now I'm taking what's mine: time, dignity, and a little peace. When you understand love again, maybe you'll find me." I sealed the envelope with a trembling hand and placed it next to the half-empty jug of water she'd thrown. The irony wasn't lost on me. When the plane landed, the air smelled of salt and rain. I looked out at the sea, endless, deep, forgiving. I took a deep breath and felt something I hadn't in years: peace. But even as I walked toward my new beginning, part of my heart still whispered her name. Because no matter how hurt I was, she was still my daughter. And love doesn't vanish that easily. You know, I said softly to my audience, sometimes walking away isn't revenge. It's survival. Have you ever loved someone so much that leaving them was the only way to protect yourself? Comment below, my dear ones. I'd love to hear your heart. That night, as I sat by my small hotel window overlooking the sea, I held that picture of her one more time. I whispered into the night air, I hope she remembers the mother who loved her before she remembers the mother who left her. Because one day she will check that account. And when she does, maybe she'll finally understand the cost of disrespect. When the morning light touched her face, Emily woke up lazily, unaware that her life was about to change forever. The house felt strangely quiet. No smell of breakfast, no gentle humming from the kitchen, no soft footsteps moving across the floor. "Mom," she called, half irritated. No answer. She rolled her eyes. "Probably went out for groceries," she muttered. But when she entered the kitchen, she stopped. On the table lay a small, folded envelope. Next to it, her phone buzzing with bank notifications. Her hand trembled as she unlocked it. Account balance: $0. For a few seconds she thought it was a glitch. Then her eyes caught the jug of water on the counter. The same one she had thrown at me last night. And then the letter. She opened it with shaking fingers. My handwriting, neat and slow, filled the paper. "My dear daughter, I asked for water and received shame instead. I gave you everything and you gave me nothing but humiliation. So today I take back my peace, my dignity, and what you thought was only yours. When you learn that love isn't control, maybe you'll find me. Until then, take care of your soul, because it's emptier than this house." Her knees gave way. She sank to the floor, the letter clutched to her chest. Tears began to fall, hot, unstoppable, burning her skin. For the first time she wasn't angry. She was scared. Her husband came running when he heard her cry. "What happened, Emily?" he asked, alarmed. She couldn't speak. She just handed him the letter. He read it quietly, his face turning pale. Then he looked at her, not with pity but disappointment. "What did you do?" he whispered. She swallowed hard. I just got angry." She was being dramatic again. "Dramatic?" he interrupted. "Emily, she's your mother. The woman who raised you alone. The woman who gave up her life so you could have yours." His words hit her harder than any slap could. And for the first time she realized she had become everything she once promised never to be. She searched the house desperately. My room, the porch, even the backyard. Everything was gone. My clothes, my favorite shawl, the old suitcase. Only silence remained. That night she sat on my bed, hugging my old pillow. The scent of lavender still lingered there. It made her cry harder. "Mom," she whispered between sobs, "please come back." But I wasn't there to hear her. Meanwhile I was miles away, sitting by the sea. The waves rolled gently, the breeze brushing through my silver hair. I held my small cup of tea and smiled faintly. Somewhere deep down, I knew she must have found the letter by now. I could almost feel her tears, the same way a mother always feels her child's pain, even from far away. "This isn't revenge," I whispered softly. "It's a lesson written in love." Days passed, then weeks, and every day Emily tried to call. Every morning she checked her messages. Every night she hoped I would forgive her. Her husband tried to comfort her, but guilt had already made its home in her heart. She stopped sleeping, stopped smiling, until one evening she sat on the kitchen floor, holding the same jug she had once thrown. Her tears fell into it one after another. And that's when she whispered, "I'd give up everything, just to hear her voice again." Meanwhile, I had found peace in that little coastal town. The sea became my friend, the waves my lullaby. I started painting again, cooking for myself, even laughing with the locals who called me Miss Silver. But at night, when the world went quiet, I still looked at my phone, waiting for a message I'd never reply to. Not yet. I needed her to understand the value of a mother's tears before I gave her the gift of my forgiveness. One evening, as I was walking near the shore, a young woman approached me. "You look lonely," she said kindly. "Waiting for someone." Smiled. "Not waiting, remembering." She nodded. "Sometimes the ones we love hurt us the most." I looked at her and replied softly, "Yes, but love doesn't disappear. It just learns when to walk away." Back home months later, Emily did something I never expected. She went to the orphanage, the same one I used to donate to secretly, and volunteered. The children there ran to her, hugging her legs. Their laughter melted her pain little by little. She began to cook for them, tell them stories, braid their hair. And in every child's face, she saw a reflection of what she'd lost. She was changing. Slowly, painfully, beautifully. One afternoon, one of the children handed her a small seashell. "I found this for you," the girl said. "My grandma says seashells carry messages from the ocean." Emily smiled faintly, whispering, "I hope this one carries mine." That night she wrote an email, the longest she'd ever written. It began with 3 simple words. "Mom, I'm sorry." She told me everything, her guilt, her regret, her loneliness. She didn't beg for forgiveness. She just wanted me to know she finally understood. And when I read it, sitting by the window of my small seaside cottage, I finally cried. But this time they were tears of healing. I picked up my pen and wrote back, "My dear daughter, I left not to punish you, but to remind you of love's silence. I forgive you. Not because you asked, but because a mother's heart never stops loving. Come when you're ready. The sea and I will be waiting." And that night, as I looked out at the moonlight dancing over the waves, I smiled. Because sometimes, distance doesn't break families. Teaches them what closeness really means. It was early spring when I saw her again. The ocean breeze carried the scent of blooming jasmine, and the waves seemed softer that day, as if they knew something was about to change. I was sitting on my usual bench by the sea, my shawl wrapped tightly around my shoulders, my old hat tilted slightly to block the sun. The world was calm, peaceful. Until I heard it, a trembling, familiar voice behind me. "Mom!" For a moment I froze. My hands stopped moving. I didn't dare turn around. My heart began to race, slow, heavy beats that echoed through my chest. Then I heard it again, softer this time. "Mom, please." Turned. And there she was. Emily stood a few feet away, thinner than I remembered, her eyes swollen and tired, her hair tied carelessly in a bun. But what caught me wasn't her appearance. It was her expression. She looked like a little girl again, scared and broken, just like when she used to run to me after falling off her bike. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The sea whispered between us. Then I said quietly, "You found me." She nodded, tears already running down her cheeks. "I looked everywhere. Every town, every place you loved. I didn't stop, Mom." I smiled faintly. "And what made you think I'd be here?" Her lips quivered. "Because you always said the sea listens better than people do." I couldn't help it. A tear slipped from my eye. She took a hesitant step closer. "Mom, I don't deserve forgiveness. But I came to ask anyway." I looked at her for a long moment, letting the waves fill the silence. Then I stood up slowly, my old bones aching, but my heart wide open. "Do you know," I said softly, "how many nights I cried, asking myself where I went wrong as a mother?" She lowered her head. "Every night I asked myself the same thing, where I went wrong as a daughter." Her words hit me like a wave. My lips trembled. "Then maybe we both just forgot how to listen to each other." She finally stepped close enough to touch my hand. It was cold, trembling, but hers wrapped around it gently, the way she used to when she was a child. "Mom," she whispered, "I can't change what I did, but I can spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." I looked into her eyes, the same hazel shade as mine once were, and smiled through my tears. "Oh, Emily, you already have. The moment you realized love isn't about pride, but understanding." And then we both broke. She fell into my arms, sobbing like a child, and I held her tighter than ever before. The years of distance, of silence, of pain, they all melted into that one single moment. The sea roared louder, as if cheering for our forgiveness. Later that evening we sat together by the water, our shoes off, our feet buried in the cool sand. She rested her head on my shoulder, the same way she did when she was a little girl falling asleep after bedtime stories. "Do you hate me, Mom?" she asked quietly. I chuckled softly. "Hate you? Oh, sweetheart. Hate is too heavy for a heart that loves you this much." She smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. "I still can't believe you emptied my account." I laughed, the sound surprising both of us. "Well," I said, pretending to be stern, "it was my money to begin with. I just reminded you who built that roof you slept under." She giggled, and for the first time in months, we both laughed freely, like old friends rediscovering joy. Then she turned serious again. "Mom, I want you to come home." I looked at the horizon, where the sun kissed the water. "Home isn't always a place, Emily. Sometimes it's a feeling we have to rebuild." "But can we rebuild it together?" she asked, her voice trembling. I placed my hand over hers. "Yes, my dear. Together." A few weeks later we did return home. The same walls that once echoed with silence were now filled with laughter, the smell of cookies, and music from an old radio. Every morning she made me tea, not just a cup of water but tea sweet and warm with extra care. And every time she handed it to me, she smiled shyly, as if silently saying, "I remember." I forgave her not because she asked, but because forgiveness is the only way a mother can breathe again. Sometimes I catch her watching me quietly while I read or sew. Once I asked her why. She said, "Because I'm scared one day I'll blink, and you'll be gone again." I smiled gently. "Then stop blinking so much." We both laughed until tears came, this time happy ones. Now, when I sit by the window and watch the sunset, I often think back to that night when water dripped down my face, burning my heart more than my skin. If only I knew then. That pain would lead us here, to peace, to love, to understanding. So, if anyone's listening to me right now, I look straight into the camera, my voice trembling, and you've been hurt by someone you love, don't let anger be the only thing that speaks for you. Sometimes, silence teaches louder than screams. And love always finds its way back home.